Are you looking for an audio interface that won't break the bank like the Rodecaster Pro? Well, Fifine has come out with this SC1 audio interface, and the great thing about it is it's $55. So how good is a $55 audio interface? Let's take a deeper look into it. As we take a look into this interface, I will be using this microphone in front of me, which is the Shure SM7X. This is the XLR only version of this microphone, and I have it running directly into the SC1 interface. I'm not going to add any post processing or anything like that, so that way you get the exact sound that you're going to get out of this interface. You can add some effects in it if you need to. If you need to up the gain or lower the gain, whatever you need to do, you can always do that in post, but I'm not going to do that, just so you get the raw sound from this interface. So Fifine did send me this interface to try out and do a review video on. So I have been using this for probably the last 4 months, and I wanted to get a good idea for how it works in my workflow, and that way I get a good idea of kind of the quality and what you can expect to get with this interface coming in at that $55 price point. So they did not tell me how to make this video or what to say, so I'm going to give you my actual review of what I think about this and who it is actually for. Now, why do you actually need an audio interface or mixer? What is the point? What does it do? Well, if you want to run an XLR only microphone into your computer, you need some sort of interface like this, or even the Rodecaster Pro. There's so many different brands and options out there, but basically you need some sort of interface or mixer to connect the microphone to, and then you connect the interface to your computer, so that way you can use the XLR microphone, because there's no way to plug in an XLR microphone directly into your computer without an interface. I do have the Rodecaster Pro 2 that you see back there behind me on my main studio setup. I use that all the time on videos and even our podcast. I do have up to 4 people, so with 4 inputs, I do have that, and that thing is great if you are doing a podcast. I would recommend something like that other than this, especially if you need more than one XLR input, because this is a single XLR input, which means you can only have one microphone hooked up to it. So the Rodecaster and a bunch of other ones out there can give you up to 4 inputs if you need to. I was actually looking for an interface for this setup when they contacted me to try this out. I'm like, yeah, sure, it's perfect. I did need an audio interface for this setup. I used this desk here for my 9-to-5 job. So I was looking for something that I could use to connect an XLR microphone just to get a better sound quality out of our Zoom calls. We actually use Microsoft Teams, but something to get a better sound quality than using the built-in microphone in the laptop, or even out of my webcam, which is a Logitech Brio 4K. So what comes in the box is obviously the interface itself and an instruction manual on how to use it and different ways to set up microphones or instruments to this. And then it also comes with a cable, which I really like because it comes with the USB-C option, or it also has this adapter for the USB-C type A. So whether you're running it through a PC or a Mac, you can connect it with one cable. Now, when you do pick this thing up, you will notice it is very light. That's because it is pretty much primarily all plastic with some metal pieces on the inputs. But other than that, it's pretty much all plastic. The knobs are plastic and all that, which does make it light, and it is nice and compact, so it doesn't take a lot of room on your desk. On the front of the device, it has a mic or line 1 combo input interface for the XLR mic connection or the 1/4-inch mic connection. So no matter which one of those you have, this is a dual connection. It'll accept both of those. And you'll notice that it is the only one to input a microphone. So like I said, this is a single microphone input. So if you need a secondary microphone or anything like that, it will not work with this interface. Next to that, you have your 48-volt phantom power switch transmitter, and when it is lit green, that means you are getting that 48 volts of phantom power. This will help with a lot of condenser microphones that need that 48-volt power, so it is nice. You can switch that on and off depending on what microphone you have. Next to that, you have the instrument or microphone switch, so this allows you to switch between the instrument mode and recording mode. Then you have the second insert, which provides a 1/4-inch interface for an instrument like a guitar or bass. And next to that is your headphone interface output to the 6.5mm TRS headphones. And directly next to that is your headphone volume knob. So you use this to turn up or down the volume in your headphones. And next to that, you'll see you do have a direct monitor button. So this allows you to monitor the sound mixed with the computer and mic, or only from the computer. So right now I do have that turned on. So if I wanted to put on these headphones that I have connected to it, I can actually monitor my sound that's coming through this microphone. And that way you can know if you're a little too far or too close to it. But I went ahead and did a test run, so I kind of don't want those on for this video. And then next to that is the green LED button letting you know that the unit is on. One thing to note on this is there is no on and off switch, so it is constantly on if it's plugged into your computer. The only way to turn it off is to basically unplug it. On the back of the unit, you'll see you have two options for left and right speakers. If you want to connect external speakers to this is where you would make that connection. And you have the Type-C port, which supplies the power to the interface. So you'll plug this into the interface and then take the other end and plug it directly into your computer. On the very top of the unit, you'll see you have your gain knob. So on the very left, you have your mic or line 1 gain control. So turn this up or down depending on how loud you want your microphone to be. And you'll see that it does light up green. So it does light up 3 different colors. So green means you are in a safe zone. Yellow is when you're going to start peaking a little bit, and then it'll turn red if your microphone is way too loud. So this will control whatever you have plugged into the front as the mic 1 or line 1. So right now I have my XLR microphone plugged into that. So this gain knobs controls the gain of my microphone. So in the very center, you have the instrument gain 2. This controls the gain level of the instrument connected to the instrument 2 input. And on the very right-hand side, you have your outputs gain. So this controls the gain level of speakers connected to the 2 inputs on the back of the unit. And plugging this into your computer is super easy. You're going to plug it in the back to power the unit, and then you're going to take the other end of the unit and plug it directly into your computer, whether you have the USB-C port or USB Type A. And then once it's connected to your computer, the unit is on and will stay on until you disconnect it. And most computers will recognize this once you plug it in, but if you have a certain software that you are using and it's not recognizing that device, is into that program and go to where your settings and audio device setup is, and there'll be a drop-down menu where you can select this. It will probably show up as the Fifine SC1, so you'll just select that, and then all your audio will be coming from that. If you do have a different output for the headphones, you can also do the same thing and select this as your headphone device. And then all you have to do after that is plug in your microphone to the XLR port in the front, headphones if you want to use those, and you're good to go. So it's really just plug and play. It is super easy to set up. That's why I really recommend this for beginners. If you're looking to do a solo podcast too, or maybe starting a YouTube channel and don't want to invest a ton of money into something like the Rodecaster, this will be a great starting point for you. And then you could kind of test out different microphones, see what you like and what you don't like. And then if you do decide to kind of expand and bring in more microphones or more people on your podcast, you definitely have some knowledge with using an interface, and that will all transfer over to the more expensive ones that tend to have better upgrades. I'll post some of the technical specs up here so you can take a look at those for the specifications of this actual unit. You'll see the frequency response is 20 hertz to 20 kilohertz, has a dynamic range of 80 decibels. And then this is kind of important, is the gain range is 50 decibels. So if you have a microphone that is kind of like this Shure SM7X, or most other microphones will probably work with this, unless you have a gain heavy microphone, something like the Shure SM7B, that's kind of a quiet and requires a lot of gain. That might not work with this. You'll probably notice it's too quiet. You can supplement that with a gain booster, but those are going to add probably another at least $50 to your investment. So probably most people that are using this interface aren't going to be using a Shure SM7B, but if you just so happen to be one of those people, you will likely need some sort of gain booster to go above that 50 decibels that comes directly out of here. But there are plenty of budget-friendly microphones from Fifine that will fit within the 50 decibels of gain and work well with this unit. So one other tech spec to be aware of here is the bit depth, which is 16-bit. So probably what you're going to be using this for isn't going to be that big of a deal, especially if you're using it for Zoom calls, stuff like that. But if you are going to be doing a lot of audio processing or editing with this for a podcast, that might limit you. So if you go into the red, you're really not going to be able to lower that or get that sound to sound a whole lot better in your post editing. Whereas if you have other interfaces that are more expensive that come with a 24-bit rate or even 32 now, if you do peak and your levels go over that into the red zone, then you could kind of fix that in post. But with that 16-bit, if you do peak, and hit those red limiters, you're going to have a hard time getting that to sound okay in editing. And going back to this being a very budget-friendly audio interface for people, I'm actually going to try a couple different microphones from Fifine that are in the budget platform. These are the K669 microphones. They have two different ones. They have the model that ends with a D, and that is for the dynamic, or the K669C, which is a condenser microphone. If you want to check these out, I did a full review on these two so you can see the difference between them. But the great thing about these microphones is they are under $40. So if you get this interface with these microphones, you have in a complete setup under $100, which is hard to do. So let's go ahead and switch over to these microphones. Before we switch over, just for reference, on this Shure SM7X, I have the gain turned to about the 4 o'clock position, which I think this thing maxes out probably right around 5 o'clock. So I have it pretty much turned up all the way for this microphone. So let's see what the gain level will be set with these other microphones. First up is the K669C, and this is the condenser microphone. So you'll see I'm actually talking into the front of this microphone instead of the top. So this is a pretty popular type of microphone if you're going to be using this for streaming. So you'll see a lot of streamers actually use condenser microphones just because you don't have to be as close to this. And this is actually good for Zoom calls, so you actually don't have to be as close to that. You can also have it off to the side. But I will tell you that when I had it set to the gain level that I had my Shure set to, it was hitting the red LED light indicator, so it was definitely way too high. So I actually have it turned down now to about the 12 o'clock position. So I'm using a lot less gain with this condenser microphone. So again, I'm not going to be doing any post audio editing. If I have to raise or lower the gain, I'll let you know on the screen. But this is the raw sound that you're going to get with this Fifine microphone that is under $40. So let me know how this sounds compared to the Shure that we listened to earlier. So now we are on the K669D, which is the dynamic microphone. I did have to turn the gain up a little bit on this one, so I am at the 3 o'clock position on this one versus the 12 o'clock where I had the condenser microphone, and then about the 4 o'clock that I had the Shure microphone on. So not quite as much gain as the Shure needed, but still a little bit more than that condenser, which is pretty typical on microphones. You're going to see that you're going to need more gain on dynamic microphones than probably your condensers. But if you have $100, you can definitely get this set up. You will have a great sounding microphone and interface for a budget-friendly price, especially if you're wanting to get into this and not sure if it's something you're going to pursue or keep doing for YouTube videos or podcasts, or even if you want it, like I said, for your work calls, it'll sound more professional. The only other thing that you will need is headphones if you want to monitor your audio, and then an XLR cable because that does not come with the interface or the microphones, and then some sort of stand or boom arm for the mics themselves, but also the boom arm that I'm using now, and I actually just got this. I paid for this myself, but it's the low profile boom arm, and this thing is awesome. I've been looking into getting a low profile boom arm for a while because I used the regular ones back there, and the boom arms, depending on how you have the camera angled and where you're sitting in the microphone, can actually get in the way and kind of block your face, whereas this doesn't block your face at all, and it takes a lot less room up on this desk, and it kind of folds away nice and to the back when I'm not using it. And one thing I do like about this is it does raise and lower like that. So if I need to raise it higher, especially if I want to stand up with this desk, I can raise this, where some low profile boom arms don't actually raise or lower. You're kind of stuck with where it's at. But that's what I like about this Fifine one, is you do have that adjustability, and you do have it to where it has cable management. So it does have an area where you can run the XLR cables to hide them, and it doesn't seem as messy on your desk. So I definitely recommend this low profile boom arm if you're looking for one. I think it was right around the same cost as the interface, like mid 50s, but definitely well worth it. And I'll have a separate video on this boom arm in a separate video. So I'm going to go ahead and keep this K669D microphone hooked up so you can get a better idea of how it sounds paired with the Fifine SC1 interface, in case this is something that you want to get the pair of. So let's go ahead and go over the pros and cons, because obviously there's going to be pros and cons of this device. We'll start with the pros. Obviously the price, it's very inexpensive, $55, not a lot of money for an audio interface. Even the Fosturite Scarletts that are a single input device are a lot more expensive. Generally those are over $100. So a lot less than those, and definitely a lot less than that Rodecaster Pro that I have back there. You can find these on Amazon. I will have a link in the description below to everything I have in this video, but that is definitely a pro, is the price point of this. And usability, the fact that this thing is basically plug and play. It is a great device for beginners, somebody that doesn't know a lot about audio mixing or anything like that. If all you need is a way to plug in an XLR cable to your computer and that's it, that is basically what this thing will do for you. You do have the advantage to use this with instruments if you want to, but I think most people are going to specifically use this device for the XLR capability. And then you don't have to worry about faders or any sort of adjustments on this thing. Basically, you're going to get whatever sound your microphone has is going to show up on your Zoom call, which is going to be much better than the microphones on your built-in device. So the usability of this is going to be pretty simple, so definitely beginner friendly because it doesn't have a bunch of advanced features that you probably don't want or need. So the simplicity of this device will definitely be a pro for beginners. And the fact that it is super lightweight and compact is another pro. So it does not take up a lot of room on your desk and it is lightweight. You can even mount it probably under your desk if you needed to. So definitely a pro. You'll see I definitely have it tucked away on the back of my desk, not really taking up much room. So we'll put that in the pro column. And then this might just be me, but I do like the fact that the single cord has 2 connection types, so that way you don't have multiple cords you got to keep track of. And then if you want to switch between a Mac and PC like I'm doing now, I use a PC for my day job and I'm using my MacBook Air for this video, so I'm able to change between the USB-C type A and C depending on what computer I'm using. So moving on to the cons, and probably the first con that I'll give it is that 50 decibels of gain, because that is going to be limiting depending on what type of microphone. If you're sticking within the budget friendly types, probably under even $200 type of microphones, most of them will be fine. Most condenser microphones you won't have any issues with, but if you're going to have something like the Shure SM7B that is a gain heavy microphone, probably not going to be able to use it with just a device. You'll have to invest in a gain booster, which will be probably about the same price of the device itself, if not more. So that'll just add to the cost. So if that's something that you want to do and have a Shure SM7B and a cheap interface, you can definitely do that, but you'll have to invest more money in that. But other than that, most other microphones, like the ones that we've tried out here, work just fine. But we'll go ahead and call that a con just because it will not accept every type of microphone. You will be limited to that gain. And then with that, we'll go ahead with the headphone preamps. With the Rodecaster Pro 2, I don't know if anybody has experience with that, but the preamps on that are amazing. Basically, whatever you hear from that is going to be in your final recording. The first version, you had a lot of noise that was like kind of like hissing noise and just stuff that was in your headphones but didn't make it to your recording, but was kind of a pain because you didn't know if for sure what was going to be on the recording or not. With these, I do have to turn the microphone knob almost all the way up just so I can hear my audio in these headphones, and I just use the Rode NTH100. These are really great microphones, but you can use even the Apple ones that come with your Apple device. But with these headphones, I do have the mic volume turned all the way up, and with that I do get a lot of static noise. It's not going to come into the final recording or anything like that, but when you are listening or monitoring your audio or having a Zoom call conversation and you have that dial turned all the way up, you will notice that you're going to hear some sounds, mostly kind of like a static noise sound, but not a huge deal. But I'll put that in a con. But at this price point, I wouldn't expect the same preamps that are in the Rodecaster Pro anyway. Like we touched about earlier, I'm going to put that 16-bit sample rate in the con column. I would like to see at least 24, but that might not be an issue for somebody that is a beginner and just needing this for Zoom calls or anything like that. But somebody that will be doing a lot of post-processing or even having to do video edits where you didn't realize you were redlining the gain, that is going to cause some issues. So, but again, at the price point, not surprised that it is only 16. Now, to me, the next two are cons for me. They may not be cons for you, but that is no on and off switch and no mute button. So in order to turn this off, you have to unplug it, which isn't a huge deal, but I'd rather just hit a button and it'd be off, kind of like on the Rodecaster Pro. But if you're not worried about that or just want to have it plugged in all the time, not a big deal. But there is no physical on and off button. It just stays on unless you unplug it. And then no mute button, so you can't actually hit a button on here to mute the microphone. So one thing that I have noticed is that when it's just sitting and I'm not using it, it is listening. So you'll see the light flicker if you are talking without using the microphone. So that is a negative, that there's no mute button to help prevent that. But most softwares that you're probably going to be doing video calls on, you can just mute yourself in that system. But I would like to see a physical button for mute on here. So I'll put that in the con as well. And the final con that I'm going to give it is probably something I shouldn't expect at this price point anyway, but just to be aware of, there is no internal recording option for this. So like on the Rodecaster Pro 2, you can put an SD card in there and record directly to the Rodecaster Pro onto that SD card without having it hooked up to a computer. But that is not an option on here. There's no internal recording. You do have to plug it into your computer and record to a program on your computer. So those are all of the cons that I'm going to go ahead and list out for this that I can think of. But realistically, for a $55 audio interface, you really can't expect all that stuff. You're going to be limited on what they can actually put in to this device with that price point. That's where you start looking into the more expensive devices that have those options. So if all you're really looking for is running an XLR microphone to your computer, this will be perfect for you at $55. Would I recommend this? Yes, if you're using it for that. But if you want to connect more than one microphone, then no, this will not work for you. Or if you want all those other options that I listed as cons, then you might need to look into something else. But again, I would recommend this for beginners and definitely using this to level up your Zoom calls. If you are interested in checking out the audio interface for yourself, I will post a link in the description below to where you can purchase this on Amazon. I'll also include the other microphones and boom arm that we talked about in case you're interested in those too. And if you did find this video helpful, go ahead and consider hitting that like and subscribe button because it does help the channel. If you have any questions, let me know down in the comments. Also, which microphone you think sounded the best with this interface. And if you want to learn more about these K669 microphones, go ahead and join me in this video that's popping up on your screen. We'll go jump over there and check out and compare these two microphones.